Imagine waking up one morning to your neighbor storming your gate, demanding your private pool for her daughter's party, and threatening to drag you to the HOA if you refuse. That's exactly what happened to Marcus, a hardworking homeowner who just wanted to enjoy his backyard. But instead of giving in, Marcus had a plan that would humiliate his entitled neighbor and leave the entire neighborhood talking. "Give me your pool. I need it for my party." Those were the exact words Marcus heard when he opened his front gate on that blazing Saturday morning. For a moment, he thought he misheard. But standing there with oversized sunglasses, a clipboard tucked under her arm, and that all-too-familiar smug smile was none other than Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of the neighborhood's homeowners association. Marcus blinked, still half in disbelief. He had lived here for only 6 months, but he already knew Karen's reputation. She was the type of woman who believed her opinion carried more weight than the law itself. If she didn't like the color of your curtains, she'd send you a notice. If your grass grew half an inch too tall, expect a letter in the mailbox. And if you dare to challenge her, she'd gossip about you until the entire block was buzzing. But this was on a whole new level. Marcus, a hardworking black man in his 30s, had worked for over a decade to save enough to buy his dream home. It wasn't the biggest or fanciest in the neighborhood, but had one thing he was proud of: a sparkling blue backyard pool. He spent evenings sitting beside it, barbecuing on weekends, and occasionally inviting his family over to enjoy the water. For him, it wasn't just a pool, it was a reward for years of sacrifice. Karen, however, didn't see it that way. To her, Marcus was new money. She didn't care how hard he worked, how many hours he put in, or how much pride he had in his home. In her eyes, Marcus simply didn't fit the picture-perfect mold of their suburban community. And now, with her daughter's graduation party coming up that evening, Karen had set her sights on his pool, as if it belonged to her. "Listen," Karen said, wagging her perfectly manicured finger, "we're hosting my daughter's graduation party tonight. The HOA has already decided we'll use your pool. It's only fair. Everyone in the neighborhood will be there, and it's the perfect setting." Marcus raised an eyebrow, folding his arms across his chest. "Fair? Karen, this is my private pool. I don't even know your daughter." Karen tilted her chin upward, as if his words were nothing but background noise. "Oh, don't play difficult, Marcus. It's not a big deal. We're all part of this community, and sometimes that means making sacrifices. Besides," she glanced at his backyard, "it's not like you're using it today." Her arrogance was breathtaking. She spoke as though Marcus was just a tenant on her property, someone lucky enough to be included in her world. "Karen," Marcus said firmly, his voice calm but steady, "this pool isn't community property. It's mine. I paid for it. I maintain it. And no one swims in it without my permission." Karen smirked, as if she had already won the argument. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. It's either you agree willingly, or I'll bring it up at the next HOA meeting. And trust me," she leaned in, lowering her voice, "you don't want to start off on the wrong foot with me." For a long moment, they just stared at each other, Marcus standing tall, and Karen convinced she was untouchable. She didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning of a battle she would soon regret. Marcus knew exactly what she was doing, bullying him, using fear and intimidation as her weapons, assuming that because he was the new guy on the block, he wouldn't dare push back. But Marcus wasn't the kind of man to be shaken by a raised voice or empty threats. "I paid for this house. I pay my bills. And I pay HOA fees just like everyone else," Marcus said calmly, his tone firm. "But this pool is mine, and no one touches it without my permission." Karen scoffed, flipping her hair dramatically. "You'll regret this. I'll have the whole neighborhood against you." With that, she spun on her heels and stomped away, already pulling out her phone. Marcus could hear her fake sweet voice turning sharp as she dialed, gossiping to her HOA friends about how uncooperative and selfish Marcus was. By late afternoon, the whispers had already spread. Within hours, Marcus began receiving strange, condescending little notes in his mailbox. They weren't official notices, no HOA letterhead, no signatures, just little scraps of paper folded in half with scribbled words. "Remember to be a good neighbor. Sharing is caring." The community comes first. Each one was meant to pressure him, to make him feel isolated. But Marcus wasn't moved. He had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, and waited too long for this moment in his life. This house, this pool, this backyard, it was his sanctuary. He wasn't about to be intimidated in his own home, least of all by a woman who thought she could control everyone around her. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the smell of barbecue drifted through the air, Marcus fired up his grill on the patio. He flipped steaks and seasoned chicken wings, determined to enjoy his weekend. But while he was savoring his quiet evening, his ears caught something sharp, something bitter, floating over from across the fence. Karen's voice. She wasn't even trying to whisper. She wanted him to hear. "Don't worry," Karen boasted to a cluster of neighbors gathered in her backyard. "He'll give in. They always do. He'll break. He can't stand up against me and the HOA forever. By tomorrow, that pool will be ready for my daughter's party." The neighbors chuckled nervously, some nodding along, others glancing toward Marcus's house, as if embarrassed. But Karen didn't care. She thrived on the performance, on making herself sound like the ultimate authority. Marcus set down his spatula and leaned back in his chair, a faint smile creeping onto his face. He wasn't angry. Not anymore. He was amused. Because while Karen was busy flexing her imaginary power, Marcus had already decided how he was going to deal with her. She thought she had control. She thought intimidation would work. She thought he would simply hand over his pool out of fear of embarrassment. But what Karen didn't know was that Marcus had a plan that would not only protect his pool, but also teach Karen a lesson she would never forget. And as the smell of sizzling food filled the air and Karen's laughter echoed from across the fence, Marcus sat in his yard, calm and patient, already preparing the move that would flip the entire situation upside down. The morning of the party arrived, and Karen showed up at Marcus's front gate like a general marching into battle. She had a clipboard under her arm, a whistle around her neck, and an energy that screamed dictator mode. "All right," she barked the moment Marcus stepped outside. "Move your things. We'll be setting up tables and decorations around the pool in an hour. My daughter's friends are bringing floaties, speakers, and food. Try to stay out of the way, okay?" It wasn't a request. It was a command. Marcus looked her dead in the eye, his face calm, his voice steady. "Karen, you're not using my pool. End of discussion." For a second, her smile faltered. But then she burst into laughter, loud and mocking, as though he had just told the funniest joke in the world. "Oh, Marcus," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "I've already told everyone. They're coming. This is happening whether you like it or not." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages. "See? Dozens of RSVPs. People are bringing gifts, food, decorations. The whole neighborhood is expecting this. You can't possibly embarrass yourself by saying no now." Marcus didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply turned, walked into his backyard, and closed the gate behind him. Inside, his expression hardened. He had given her every chance to back off. She ignored his words, his rights, and his boundaries. She thought she could bulldoze her way into his property. Not today. Marcus walked over to his pool pump, bent down, and twisted a valve. Instantly, the steady gurgle of draining water filled the air. Slowly, the crystal blue water that shimmered under the morning sun began to swirl away, disappearing down the drain. By the time the first hour had passed, most of the pool was empty, the once inviting oasis now a hollow shell. And right on cue, Karen arrived again. This time, she wasn't alone. She had a car full of decorations, her daughter holding balloons, teenagers carrying folding chairs, and a couple of men hauling boxes of snacks and soda. They marched behind her like a parade, ready to set up the party of the year. But the moment they turned the corner and laid eyes on Marcus's backyard, the entire group froze. The pool, the centerpiece of Karen's big plan, was gone. Not gone as in missing, but gone as in bone dry. A cracked, echoing pit replaced the sparkling blue they were expecting. Karen's face drained of color. "What have you done?" she shrieked, her voice cracking in disbelief. Marcus stood on his patio, sipping his coffee like nothing unusual had happened. He gave a casual shrug. "You wanted my pool for a party," he said coolly. "Here it is. Hope your guests brought shovels. The kids burst into giggles, some whispering under their breath. This is so embarrassing. Karen's daughter's face turned red as she muttered, "Mom, this is a disaster." Karen, however, was furious. Her cheeks flushed scarlet, her fists clenched at her sides, and her body trembled with rage. She wasn't just angry about the empty pool. She was humiliated. In her world, image was everything. And Marcus had just shattered the perfect party she promised the entire neighborhood. "This isn't over," she screamed, pointing at him with shaking hands. "You'll pay for this, Marcus. I swear you'll regret ever crossing me." But Marcus? He just sipped his coffee, leaned back in his chair, and said nothing. He didn't need to. The empty pool had already spoken louder than any words ever could. Karen wasn't used to losing. Her entire sense of self relied on control, authority, and the illusion that she always came out on top. But now, staring at the empty pit where Marcus's pool once glistened in the sun, she felt her grip slipping. Her face flushed red with fury as she fumbled for her phone. "Yes, officer. My neighbor is destroying community property," she sputtered into the receiver, her voice rising with panic and anger. "He drained the pool to sabotage my daughter's party. You have to do something." She barely finished her sentence before the operator assured her help was on the way. Within minutes, 2 police cars screeched to a halt on the quiet suburban street. Lights flashing, officers stepped out, notebooks in hand, assessing the chaos unfolding in front of them. Curious neighbors peeked from behind curtains, some stepping into the street with their phones out, recording the confrontation. Within moments, a small crowd had gathered. Whispers and murmurs buzzed through the street like electricity. Is this really happening? She actually thought she could take someone else's pool? Karen stood in the center of it all, shoulders back, chest out, convinced she was about to witness Marcus being dragged away in handcuffs. She waved her phone, pointing at him dramatically, as if presenting him as a criminal. Marcus remained calm, unshaken. He stepped forward as one of the officers approached. "Good morning, officers," he said politely. "How can I help?" The first officer, a tall man with a no-nonsense demeanor, asked Marcus to explain what had happened. Calmly, Marcus showed them his deed, his HOA documents, and his property line clearly marked in official records. Every document proved what Marcus already knew. The pool was entirely his private property, maintained, paid for, and under his ownership alone. Karen's eyes widened in disbelief. But this is discrimination," she cried, waving her arms wildly. "He's doing this to spite me." The officer narrowed his eyes, voice firm and measured. "Ma'am, I'd suggest you calm down before you cause a real disturbance. Mr. Marcus is within his rights. The pool is his property. There is no crime here." For the first time, Karen's confident, domineering facade faltered. She glanced around, realizing that the neighbors were all recording, whispering, and silently judging her behavior. Some were even trying to stifle their laughter. Her face burned brighter with embarrassment, the weight of humiliation pressing down on her. The teenagers who had come to the party looked on in disbelief, their expressions a mix of awkwardness and amusement. "This is so weird," muttered one of them under his breath. Karen, now thoroughly humiliated, grabbed her half-deflated balloons, folding chairs, and her daughter's party decorations. She stormed off, dragging her daughter behind her, muttering incomprehensible threats that no one could take seriously anymore. The party she had envisioned, a festive gathering full of neighbors, music, and laughter, ended before it even began. Meanwhile, Marcus leaned against the gate, sipping his coffee as the neighbors' whispers and giggles filled the air. His plan had worked perfectly. Calm, collected, and fully in control of his property, Marcus had turned Karen's arrogance against her, proving a lesson that money, entitlement, or HOA authority could never trump hard work and legal rights. The street, once quiet, now buzzed with stories and phone recordings. By the end of the day, everyone knew exactly who the real winner was. News of the incident spread like wildfire. What began as a neighborhood spat quickly turned into a viral sensation online. Videos of Karen yelling at Marcus, her dramatic calls to the police, and the officers shutting her down circulated across social media. Clips of Marcus standing calmly, sipping his coffee while Karen raged, were shared and reshared with captions like, HOA Karen versus homeowner. Who wins? And when entitlement meets reality. People couldn't get enough. Some videos had hundreds of thousands of views within hours, with viewers commenting on Karen's arrogance and Marcus's cool-headed confidence. Memes popped up overnight, side-by-side comparisons of Karen pointing furiously at Marcus while he calmly drained his pool, complete with captions like, expectation versus reality. Instead of siding with Karen, most neighbors rallied around Marcus. A few approached him personally, embarrassed that they hadn't supported him earlier. One elderly couple confessed, "We've lived here for 20 years, and Karen has made life miserable for a lot of people. We're sorry we ever doubted you." Others shared stories of being bullied by Karen, from trivial complaints about lawn decorations to unfair fines for minor infractions. Marcus listened patiently, nodding, but he didn't gloat. He knew the victory wasn't about revenge. It was about standing up for what was right. The next HOA meeting was packed. Word had spread fast, and residents came prepared to address Karen's behavior. Tensions were high as the board convened in the small community hall, the air thick with anticipation. Karen entered confidently, her clipboard and phone in hand, expecting to assert her dominance. But this time, the room wasn't on her side. Voices rose as neighbors shared their experiences, recounting how Karen had consistently overstepped boundaries, bullied homeowners, and created an atmosphere of fear and intimidation. Some read aloud tweets and posts about the viral pool incident. The room was a mix of laughter, murmurs, and nods of agreement, all pointing to one clear truth. Karen's reign of entitlement had finally caught up with her. When a vote came, it was unanimous. Karen was removed from her HOA board position. Shocked and humiliated, she gathered her belongings and left the hall, the whispers and stares following her. No dramatic outburst could save her reputation this time. The community had spoken, and justice had been served in a way that no amount of money or manipulation could overturn. As for Marcus, life returned to a peaceful rhythm. He refilled his backyard pool, the clear blue water sparkling once again under the sun. Over the weekend, he hosted a small barbecue, inviting the neighbors who had supported him through the ordeal. Children splashed in the pool, neighbors laughed and shared stories, and the once tense neighborhood felt alive with warmth and camaraderie. Marcus, leaning back with a drink in hand, looked around and smiled. "No one owns your happiness, and no one owns your pool, except you," he said, almost to himself. The simple words carried a powerful message. Boundaries, respect, and self-confidence mattered far more than entitlement or authority. By the end of the month, the story had become legendary in the neighborhood. Marcus had not only protected his property, but had also reminded everyone that standing your ground, calmly, legally, and with dignity, could turn even the most arrogant bully into a lesson everyone remembered. In the end, Karen's arrogance and entitlement backfired spectacularly. Her HOA power vanished, her party was ruined, and Marcus became the neighborhood hero for standing his ground. The lesson is clear. Know your rights, protect your space, and never let anyone bully you. What would you have done if you were Marcus? Comment below, hit like, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping real-life stories.